We all have an image that comes to mind when we think of winners and losers. Ostensibly, winners are people who succeed, and losers are people who fail. There are certainly cultural markers that would seem to indicate success, such as affluence and renown, but are those really the only ways to discern winners from losers? Little Miss Sunshine is a movie about a lot of things, touching on topics as personal as the importance of family and dealing with the loss of a loved one, or as esoteric as the application of philosophical principles such as Stoicism and nihilism. But the core theme, the theme that the movie almost beats the audience over the head with, is a simple question. What does it mean to be a loser? The impetus for this question was none other than the Terminator himself.
If there's one thing in this world I hate, it's losers. I despise them.
This sentiment, espoused by Conan to a group of high schoolers, struck the writer of the film, Michael Arndt, as improper. And I thought, there's something so wrong with that attitude. I wanted to attack that idea that in life, you're going up or you're going down. This thought in mind, Mr. Arndt set out to write a script that would serve as his rebuttal. The resulting film follows a family of losers as they help a young girl accomplish her goal of winning a beauty pageant. Said pageant is 800 miles away, however, and the finances of the family do not facilitate air travel, car rental, a hotel stay, and so on. So instead, this group of losers endeavors to drive the distance. While the film does to some degree depict all but the youngest as losers, the type of losers they are and the degree of loserdom they each possess vary from character to character. Dwayne is an angsty teen with aspirations of joining the Air Force. He's obsessed with Nisha and has taken a vow of silence, alienating himself from all those around him. This isolation causes him to loathe everyone and everything that crosses his path.
Loser.
Edwin is an aging hedonist that got the boot from his retirement community for snorting heroin and throughout the film promotes the value of meaningless promiscuity.
Loser.
Frank is a former member of academia who attempted to take his own life after one of his colleagues ran off with his former boyfriend. Said colleague surpassed him in terms of renown, taking what Frank feels to be his rightful place as the preeminent scholar of an antiquated author known almost exclusively to erudite individuals and their ilk.
Loser.
Cheryl is a divorced woman in her second marriage, just struggling to keep her family together. She's not necessarily a loser in her own right, but circumstances have made her one almost by proxy.
Loser.
Richard is an aspiring motivational speaker attempting to guide others on their path to success in life. But in the process, he is blinded to the fact that this endeavor is doomed to fail and cause the ruin of all those he is trying to provide for.
Loser.
The shining light of the family is the youngest daughter, Olive. The young girl is as of yet unbroken by the world, and her family would move mountains to keep it that way, overcoming such hurdles as a broken down van and even death itself to give the girl an opportunity to live her dream and do the thing that she loves. But when that opportunity is presented to her, it does not play out as planned. All of the hard work that Olive put into her routine is met with outrage. The audience of the pageant doesn't see that her performance is a tribute to her grandfather. They do not see all the hard work and passion that the girl put into this moment. All they see is a young lady dancing provocatively to Super Freak and attempt to end what they deem to be a vile display. But the family of losers is aware of all of this. They know what this pageant means to Olive, and the idea of letting the sensibilities of those around them extinguish their guiding light stirs them into action. They instead opt to join her on stage, dancing along the child in support of her misunderstood ambitions. How is any of this a critique of the statement made by Dutch? The answer is a bit complicated. Little Miss Sunshine does not necessarily attempt to wholly dismantle the concept of winners and losers, but more attempts to point out the flaws in such a paradigm and needle at those who would so vigorously adhere to such an outlook. What the film is trying to point out can be summed up in a simple idiom: don't miss the forest for the trees. Or to be even more cliche, it's not about the destination, it's about the journey. This premise is borne out by the fact that the majority of the movie centers around the journey to the pageant, not the pageant itself. And when we do finally arrive at this climactic event, it does not go as planned, and what happens stands in stark contrast to our expectations. Another critique that the film makes of the winner-loser dichotomy is its attempt to dismantle the societal notions of what qualifies a winner and a loser. Society would have us believe that the markers I spoke of earlier, affluence, fame, and so on, are what truly qualifies one as a winner. If that were the case, then the only conclusion that the audience could come to is that at the end of the film, Olive is a loser. But this is so clearly not the message at the end. The film paints Olive as a winner, not because she won over the audience and was crowned the winner of the pageant, but because she sets her sights on a goal and saw it out to the end. She went the distance. This is the part of the message that I feel could be misinterpreted. One could read Little Miss Sunshine as saying that there are no such things as winners and losers, and that this is a wholly useless concept, and that we should only do that which makes us feel good and never strive for anything, and so on.
You know what a loser is? A real loser is somebody that's so afraid of not winning, they don't even try. Now you're trying, right?
Yeah.
Well, then you're not a loser.
But apathy is just as contradictory to the message of the movie as trite notions of success or failure. Little Miss Sunshine clearly calls into question conventional notions of success, but it does not promote apathy or inaction. In fact, quite the opposite. Even though Olive's end goal is something that most people would deem banal, we are given no shortage of instances of her striving for that goal nonetheless. The girl is constantly practicing her routine and is clearly passionate about the pageant. She wants something and is clearly willing to work very hard to achieve it. Juxtapose this with Dwayne's situation. The teen is putting all of his efforts into joining the Air Force, only to have it be revealed that he is colorblind, and as such, is physically incapable of achieving this goal. But the film never undercuts the efforts he put into achieving his dream, but more so shows that just because he can never fly fighter jets does not mean that his efforts were squandered. Rather, these efforts build the character that will help him achieve his new goal. He is suffering now and will suffer in the future, but all this suffering will be worth it when he finally accomplishes whatever it is he's meant to accomplish. Finally, look at Richard. The patriarch of the family is the most clear embodiment of the sentiment that the screenwriter found so repugnant. He is so obsessed with the success of his 9 steps that he lets all else fall by the wayside. The film never really admonishes him for having a goal, but more so points out his flawed methodology in achieving that goal. So, much like Dwayne, even when his 9-step program fails, we are led to believe that all the work he put into said program is not entirely wasted. Just because he strived for something and failed does not mean that he should stop striving. Just because the destination was not what he intended does not mean that the journey was without value. But there's no journey without a destination, only aimless wandering. To listlessly go through life striving for nothing could be seen equally as vile as striving single-mindedly for an arbitrary goal. The goal may shift as situations change, but in the end, having something to set one's sights on and work hard towards is absolutely an admirable thing, and that is truly the hallmark of a winner. So what is a loser? Well, it's this guy. Not for any reason relevant to the themes of Little Miss Sunshine, but simply because he's a creepy fucking weirdo. On a more serious note, and one that is actually relevant to the themes laid out in the film, a loser is someone that is so focused on the end results but pays no mind to how they got there. A loser is someone who blindly follows success even if that success is at odds with their true passion. Because even if that person were to achieve the object of their desire, they would not be better for it because they'd learn nothing along the way. They will be ill-equipped to deal with anything new that comes along, because, while they have arrived at their destination, they were blind to the journey that got them there. They missed the forest for the trees, if you will. Furthermore, a loser is also someone who is utterly bereft of passion. Passion is important. Having something to strive for is the impetus for the all-important journey. Just because some may become ensorcelled by the allure of empty success does not mean that it is unimportant to strive for things. The important thing is that we try, even if the thing that we are trying to do is scoffed at by those around us. Even if in the trying you fail, it is important to try nonetheless. Failure is almost an inevitability when striving towards something, but part of what Little Miss Sunshine is trying to say is that we should not view failure as the opposite of success, but instead, we should take it in stride as a step towards a goal we didn't even know we were aiming for. Conversely, success is not simply the absence of failure. Moreover, if there were no failures along the path to success, then even if a victory was achieved, that victory is hollow and meaningless, because victory is only meaningful if it was earned through some degree of suffering. Life is a series of successes and failures, but that's what makes it worth living. The pursuit of the things that one loves and the lessons learned along the way are so much more important than the hollow things that those around us would tell us have value. But we should still strive for things, even if those things seem silly to others. To ignore these concepts, to simply go after things for the sake of having them, or to eschew effort entirely and instead go after nothing and listlessly meander through life, doing nothing and learning nothing, is antithetical to one of the biggest themes in Little Miss Sunshine. And living one's life in either manner is truly what it means to be a loser.